So we're going to be talking about factoring polynomials with 4 terms, and it is possible to factor a polynomial with 4 terms by using a method called grouping. We're going to use these 4 steps as shown here to do this. So step 1 is to make sure you're grouping the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to separate these terms. Ideally, you want to put the line so that the plus or minus whatever's in front of here is with the second half. So step 2 is to factor out the GCF from each binomial. So this is a binomial here. This is a binomial here. I'm going to go ahead and factor out what's in common here, which with x to the third and 7x squared, what I have in common is an x squared. So I'm going to pull x squared out, and then I'm going to leave everything else. So I'm going to divide x squared out of both parts, and I'm left with x plus 7. Okay, and then in the second half, I need to go ahead and find what's in common here. I've got 2x and I've got 14. My common factor here is a positive 2. And then I'm left with x plus 7 when I divide the 2 out of both parts. Okay, so the goal here is to get the same number in the parentheses. If you don't get the same number in the parentheses, you might want to look at what you're pulling out in order to make this correct. So I'm going to go ahead and factor the common binomial out. So the common thing is right here, and I'm going to separate that as my second binomial. And then the first part is going to be whatever's on the outside. Okay, so x squared plus 2. And then when I go ahead and check this, because step 4 is to distribute to check my answer, x squared times x is x to the third. Then an x squared times 7x, 7x squared, 2x, 14. And I did get the right answer. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to practice factoring each one of these. So I'm going to do the first one, and then you're going to pause and try the second one in the row. So for the first one, first step is to split this up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and focus on this, and I'm going to factor out my common term. And in this case, it's x squared. Okay, and when I factor that out, I'm left with x plus 4. And then here I have 8x and 32. My common factor there is going to be 8 between the two of those. So 8, factor that out, I'm left with x plus 4. Right? So then step 2 is to take the ones that are on the inside and make their own binomial, and the ones that are on the outside and make their own binomial. So I have x squared plus 8, and then x plus 4. And then if I distribute to check my answer, I will end up getting the same thing as the top. Please make sure that you are distributing to check your answer. All right, so try 2. Pause the video, try 2. So for number 2, when you split it in half, you should get a squared times a plus 2. And then that plus 9, a plus 2. Okay, and then when you go ahead and simplify this, you get a squared plus 9, and then a plus 2. And that's your final answer. All right, for number 3, same process. We're going to separate here. So I have w to the third, and then 5w squared. My common factor here is w squared, and I'm left with w plus 5. And then here, I have a negative 8 and negative 40. My common factor here is a negative 8. And I'm left with w plus 5. So then my first one becomes w squared minus 8. My second one becomes w plus 5. All right, pause the video, try 4. For number 4, you should have had k squared, k plus 2, and then minus 5, k plus 2. All right, and then the stuff on the outside goes in its own parentheses. Stuff on the inside goes in its own parentheses. Distribute, and you've got the right answer. All right, for number 5, I'm going to go ahead and separate it. So I've got p to the 5th, and I've got negative 6 p to the 3rd. Well, the greatest common factor between these is p to the 3rd. So I'm going to pull out p to the 3rd, and then I'm left with p squared minus 6. All right, and then for negative 2 and 12, in this case, I'm trying to get a negative 6 here. So I want to make sure that when I'm factoring this, I'm thinking of what times a negative 6 is going to get me to 12. And I know that's a negative 2. So the common factor here needs to be negative 2. Okay, and then I'm left with p squared minus 6. Okay, so once you get the first one, you get 1/2. Make sure you're trying to figure out how you can get it so it'll match, because you want the two things in the parentheses to be the same. Okay, so then I'm going to put everything that's in front, and then the stuff that's in the parentheses. Right, pause the video, try 6. For number 6, when you're pulling that out, you have v squared, and then v minus 1. okay, because you're having this, if you take a v squared out of v squared, you're left with 1. So you're going to use a minus 1 here. And then our common factor here is a negative 3, and that's v minus 1 as well. So then on the outside, I have v squared minus 3, and then v minus 1. All right, back. So we're going to go ahead and simplify this one now. So we're also introducing, instead of just having just a number or a variable, we can have both numbers and variables on the outside. So step 1 is to split this in half. And we're going to go ahead and simplify this. The common factor between these two numbers is a 3x squared. Okay, and then I'm getting x minus 7 when I divide that out. And then here, I'm left with a positive 4 as my, there we go, positive 4 as my common factor. And then x minus 7. So then on the outside, I have 3x squared plus 4. And then the other one is x minus 7. Pause video, try 8. For 8, you should get 2y to the third, and then in parentheses, y minus 3, and then minus 7 times y minus 3. So then you have 2y to the third minus 7 times y minus 3. All right, for number 9, again, we're going to split it. Okay, so I have 16a to the third and 8a squared. So I'm left with 8a squared. And then times parentheses, when I divide that out, I'm left with 2a plus 1. So then for negative 6 and negative 3, my common factor is a negative 3. And that'll leave me with 2a plus 1. Then everything on the outside, everything on the inside. Pause and try 10. For 10, your common factor should be 5m squared. Then you're left with 2m minus 5. And then on this side, your common factor is 2. 2m minus 5. All right, so then you're left with 5m squared plus 2. And then 2m minus 5. All right, for 11, now we have two different variables, and that's okay. We're still going to split this right here. So we have 8x squared and 12x, and that leaves us with a 4x as our greatest common factor. And then I'm going to be left with 2x plus 3. And on the other side, I have 2xy and 3y. My common factor here is y. So I'm going to put y on the outside. And then I'm left with 2x plus 3. So in my first set of parentheses, I have 4x plus y. My second set, I have 2x plus 3. All right, for 12, you're going to go ahead and try that one. Pause it, press play when you're done. My common factor here is c squared, and then I have d plus 3. And then for the second half, my common factor is negative 7d, and then I'm left with d plus 3. So I get c squared minus 7d, and then d plus 3. All right, 13, same idea, split in half. Between a to the third and a squared b, my common factor is a squared. I'm left with a plus b. And then I have ab plus b squared. My common factor here is b, and I'm left with a plus b. So then I have a squared plus b, and then a plus b. All right, try 14. For 14, you should have 4rs times parentheses r minus 2, and then minus 3r minus 2. So then you have 4rs minus 3 and r minus 2. All right, so for 15, 16, 17, 18, there's an extra part to this. You need to rearrange the terms. You want to try and rearrange it so that things with common factors are grouped together. Typically, you're going to see this in order, like the correct order, like if it has a variable, the highest variable alphabetically goes first, and then also by number. So like, for example, the first one, you want to rewrite it in the proper form. So I'm going to start with x squared, go to x, xy, and then y. So I'm going to start with my negative x squared. Okay, And then I'm going to go ahead and put plus 5x, and then plus 2xy minus 10y. All right, so now I have this, so I can go ahead and split it and group. So when I go ahead and group that, I have a negative x as my common factor here, because we have a negative here and a negative here. And there are some key things, like when we're factoring this out, we're going to end up with a negative answer. So you want to try and get that negative to be in the middle here. It's about playing with it a little bit. So when I go ahead and factor that out, I'm left with x minus 5. Okay, and then when I factor these out, I have 2y as my common factor, and I'm left with x minus 5. Okay, and then my first one, I have negative x plus 2y, and then x minus 5. Okay, pause video, try the next three, come back when you're ready. All right, for number 16, when you rearrange it, the best way to rearrange it would be in order. Then when you factor it, you have negative u plus 1, and then plus v, u plus 1, and then you have negative u plus v times parentheses u plus 1. Right, for 17, you should have had, when you rearranged it, 12m squared plus 3m plus 28mn plus 7n. Okay, so when I go ahead and rearrange this, I'm pulling out my common factor of 3m here, and that leaves me with 4m plus 1. And then over on this side, I'm left with 7n, 4m plus 1. Okay, and then I have 3m plus 7n, and then 4m plus 1. Okay, now for 18, you can rearrange this in order, the correct order, which would be the A, then the AB, then the B term, and then the number. However, for this one, because I want to be able to keep the B first on my second half, I'm going to put my AB term first, and then I'm going to put my A term, and then I'm going to put my B term, and then I'm going to put my number. Okay, so when I'm factoring this out, I'm pulling out a 5A. Okay, and I'm left with 2B minus 3. And then on this side, I'm pulling out a negative 7. And I'm left with 2B minus 3. And then I have 5A minus 7 and 2B minus 3.